Hey everybody. Eventually I'm going to get some kind of legitimate setup to do this. But for now it's just a matter of continuously adjusting myself like a dude. Um so today's video critter today's video is a little unpleasant. I want to talk about trauma. And I know I just recently talked about trauma and overcoming trauma. Guys, like, this drives me insane. I know I just talked a few days ago about trauma and overcoming trauma. But it's been something that has been heavy on me for a couple of days. Something that I keep coming across from other people talking about their trauma, reminders, and things like that. So I wanted to talk today for a little bit. I don't want this to be a really long one, but I want to talk about trauma. You can see I'm a little distracted. I'm a little bit subdued, and I think that has to do with the fact that I'm just emotionally... It's a really good thing my cat is here right now. Kidder. I'm just... you guys. Negative emotions can be so draining. Negative emotions, like, really legitimately can take so much out of you. Has such a toll on your physical self. It's not healthy. So one of the things that we focus on in WW, Weight Watchers, has to do with, like, you know, whole WHOLE, whole body wellness. And part of that is mental well-being, your mental health and your mental well-being. Because if your mental health is not doing well, I just want to get rid of this. I just want to shave it off of my head. If your mental health is not doing too well, then your physical health is going to reflect that. As someone who's trying to stay at a maintained weight loss or lose a couple more pounds, I try really hard to not be stressed. I try really hard not to be depressed. I try really hard not to let any of those negative things weigh me down, because they weigh me down mentally and emotionally and spiritually, but they weigh me down physically in the sense that I put on weight. Okay? But it's been really difficult lately. It's been really frustrating. I've been really stressed out with so much stuff. And then I've been talking with people and hearing them talk about their issues as well, reading about other people's problems. I don't want to say problems, not reading about their problems, but reading about other people's struggles, dealing with my own, experiencing struggles that other people that I'm close to are having. And that takes a lot out of me. Especially when people around me that I care about are suffering. I feel that, and I suffer. This isn't like, I don't want to take away from anybody else's trauma, anyone else's pain. So I will never come forward and be like, your problems are bringing me down. Because, well, it sounds negative. It has a very negative connotation. And I don't mean it that way. I mean it in the sense that I feel so deeply for the pain and suffering that my friends are going through, that it's almost like I'm going through my own version of those issues, which is very challenging. I don't know if any of you guys have experienced this or you know what I'm talking about. I don't know. That's just, I've been that way for as long as I can really remember, to a degree. Not always, not 100% of the time, but to a degree. Now, yesterday, I'm sorry, my cat is so cute and so distracting. Look at this guy. He's just fluffy and I love him. He knew that I needed hugs today. So very recently, within the last day, 2 days, in the last 2 days, I've been talking about my own struggles with other people who have struggles. And last night I kind of had a moment where I almost broke down in a way that I haven't broken down in a very long time. Stay here, kitty. So I want to kind of talk about something that happened to me when I was in high school. And that's going to really be the focus. Yes, we just had an introduction that was 6 minutes long. The focus that I want to talk about today is this experience that I had when I was in high school and kind of what happened last night that brought those feelings back to me. So, as I mentioned in the other videos about overcoming obstacles and overcoming trauma, my daughter is being yelled at by my husband. I don't know what's going on. I was sexually abused as a child. I'm not rehashing all of that. That's videos ago. You guys can go back to that. We're not rehashing it. But there was one thing in that video telling that story that I left out. One thing that I didn't focus on. I do need to... I'll be right back. Okay, I had to go diffuse some tension. Toddlers. Anyways, I was talking about this event that happened in high school as a result of my trauma. So I mentioned, I may have mentioned like having like a little breakdown after my second boyfriend broke up with me. Part of the experience was a direct result of the feeling of rejection from him. But it was also, I'm so fidgety. It was also this like realization of, or I guess a pretend realization of what I thought my future was going to be. I don't know how much I said in the other video. I did not go back and look at it or watch it before this. But essentially, after he broke up with me, and I don't know if it was before or after I found out the real reason why he broke up with me. But after that, I had like a thing in my high school psychology class. One of the projects that we had done the same year that he broke up with me. This was either just before or just after. I don't remember. We had a project for the class to research and do a report on some psychological issue. And my teacher had given us, a really long list about, 40, 50 different disorders and conditions that we could choose from and then spend a period of time doing research on and writing about and do a presentation. So I was super interested and fascinated by dissociative identity disorder. DID. DID. Do people call it DID? I don't know. DID. That's easier to say than dissociative identity disorder. I did my project on this because, again, as a high school student, in my mind, I always heard the expression like multiple personalities or multiple personality disorder. And I didn't know what that meant, but it was really fascinating to me. It interested me a lot. Going into it knowing nothing at all. And somewhere throughout the course of doing my research, I came across a book. It was a memoir written by a gentleman whose name I do not recall right now. The name of the book is First Person Plural. If you search for it on Amazon, it has a green cover. And the guy who wrote it was a successful, I believe he was in his 30s, a successful 30 something dude who he had a wife. I don't know if he had any kids. He had a completely normal life. Everything was going just fine. And then one day he woke up, and on the table beside his bed, there was a notepad that he had kept there to like journal dreams or something. I don't remember why he had it. But he had this notebook there, and there were strange scribbles in it, like words and scribbles in a handwriting he didn't recognize. And this happened a couple nights in a row, and then he started having like serious dissociative episodes. And throughout the course of the book, the story that he tells for the majority of the book is his journey of self-discovery through finding and pulling up out of the recesses of his mind his own memories of sexual abuse, his childhood trauma. And in the story, in his childhood, he had been sexually abused by various women in his life, family members. And he had completely and entirely repressed this. It was totally, if you would have asked him prior to his dissociative events, if he had ever been abused, he would have said no. He did not even remember it happening. But when the memories started coming out, more and more of his alters would come out. And I think at one point he had like about 22 different alters within him that were manifesting at various times. Like he would black out, and the next thing you know, he would be in the middle of a parking lot somewhere and have no idea of how he got there. Lots of crazy stories about things like this happening. Eventually, he got help and was able to manage his disorder, and some of the alters ended up fading away, some merged into others, some remained. And he was so, I don't want to say inspired, I feel like inspired is the wrong word. He was so deeply affected by what had happened that he went and became a PhD in psychology to help other people. And I was so fascinated by this book. I discovered the book and I learned about this disorder at a time when I was particularly fragile. I was coming to terms with my own childhood trauma and concerned and confused. I was a teenager, okay? Have you ever been a teenager? We're already not okay up here when we're teenagers. Now add this onto it. I was also kind of a hypochondriac as a child. Maybe one day I will tell you guys a story about the muscular dystrophy marathon and what happened there. So not marathon, telethon. So anyways, I started having this nagging fear that I was going to one day be a 30-something-year-old and my mind was going to snap and I was going to wake up one day with dissociative identity disorder, that I was going to go crazy. And I was petrified, so scared. I don't think I could have been more terrified of anything in my entire life. And that's why, and I said this in the other video, that's why it became so important for me to share my story, to tell people, to be open about it. For a little while, I was one of those people, I'd shake your hand, hi, I'm Felicia, I was sexually abused as a child. I don't think anything like that ever actually happened, but I was that open about it. It was that important to me to get it out there. I did not want a tiny shred of repression within me because I was so scared. But one night, I was particularly in a fragile state, and again, this was after my second boyfriend had broken up with me, and I was feeling those feelings of I'm broken, I'm ashamed, I'm worthless. Nobody's going to want me. And just like waves upon waves of these super negative, awful emotions. And I started writing. It was also around this time that I discovered the phenomenon, the thing that is stream of consciousness writing. And so I started writing. And I had a pen, I had paper, and I just wrote. And I wrote. And I wrote. I doodled. I scribbled. I very, very ferociously scribbled in the book. My emotions were going straight from my head and my heart into my hand through that pen and onto the paper. At some points, I was writing relatively neat. At other times, I was writing really big all over the place, all caps. It was like an emotional purge of words. All of my thoughts, I was just dragging them straight from my head, again, onto that paper directly through this pen. And the papers, there was probably, I think, 6 or so pages that I ended up writing. Just like expressing my fear for my mental health, anger, unfair anger towards my parents, anger towards myself, anger towards everything, guilt, shame, just nothing but this awful negative darkness, covered in tears. There were tears and snot drippings all over this paper. But when I was done, I knew that what was in that paper, in those papers, was raw and important and valid. So I gave it to my parents. And this was the first time since the initial discovery of them finding out that I had been abused. This was the first time that they were confronted with that issue, in reality, like big and serious confrontation of it. And I gave it to them and I left. They read it. My mom told me at some point afterwards, that she read it and felt super guilty and cried and this, that, and the other thing, which wasn't my intent. My intent in letting them read it was not to make them feel badly. It was a cry for help. I wasn't ever suicidal. I wasn't ever really interested in self-harm. There were definitely moments where I can't say I would have been upset if a bolt of lightning had come and struck me to death, or if I was run over by a bus. There were definitely periods in that time where I would have been completely okay with not existing anymore. I just didn't want it to be at my hand. I still joke sometimes, like, if a bear comes running up to me, I would just curl up in a ball and let it eat me. And I'm joking about stuff like that, but at that point in my life, I was serious. Throw me in the woods, let a bear come after me, and I'll just curl up. It's not my agency. It just happened. So I was in this really dark space, and I was really scared about my mental health. But somehow, I have no idea how I managed to get out of that. I think I just started telling more people, talking to more people, please let me confide all this information in you because I'm gonna go crazy. And I've told people before that oversharing has become like a coping mechanism for me, and that's so true. If I overshare, if there's ever a time when I am super oversharing, probably there's something going on. And I'm coping. I'm trying to cope with it. So that's just something that I do. But somehow I was able to get myself out of that place. I don't know how, I don't know what it was, but I got out of it. And I've had moments I've been depressed. I've had moments where I was really upset and I cried. Even still, I would say, I think I said this the other day too, probably at least once a month, I have a mental reminder of, oh, hey, Felicia, don't forget, you were sexually abused as a child. Oh, Felicia, knock, knock, just a reminder. Remember that thing that happened to you? Like at least once a month, maybe more. It depends on what's going on. So I was talking with a friend, and like just they're having a bad time, and I'm trying to like help them, make them feel better, be there for them, comfort them, provide them with friendship. And to do that, I shared the story that I just shared with you guys about the paper. Um, that was something that I typically have almost always left out of me sharing, is that moment, because that moment for me was probably my lowest point, and that wasn't really something that I wanted to dwell on or have people be concerned about. Um, because even though it was when I was 18, 16, 17, 18, people would still, you know, freak out. But sharing that yesterday just reminded me that, oh, knock, 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 Felicia's consciousness. Can we just remind you, mental health, you should be worried about yours. Um, I started looking some stuff up again about dissociative identity disorder, and I saw some things that were totally irrelevant. I'm able to draw connections between just about anything, okay? Um, but it was a woman who was talking about her path of discovery into finding out that her mother had this disorder. And there was like a checklist of questions like, did you notice any of these things? Like thinking back, like how many times did this and this happen? Oh, this was her going through these states, these episodes. And there were things like, did she suddenly have like a different sense of style or a different mood, or did she handle things differently? And something about the phrasing just stood out to me and reminded me of a time when, and again, this is something I talked about in a video before. I talked about the overcoming trauma videos, part 2, I think it was. I had a friend once tell me years ago that I just seemed all over the place. That, one minute I was this Felicia, the next minute I was that Felicia, and it was hard to like figure out who even I was. And I thought to myself after reading this last night, have I been not dissociating? Definitely, I would not in a million years suggest that that was the case. But have I been having some kind of episode? Do I have some sort of issue? Do I have issues with mania? Is it like a manic depressive thing? What is it normal for there to be so many different versions of me depending on like the weather or depending on what side of the bed I woke up on? I don't know. Is that normal or not? And I spent about a half hour last night on the couch while I was having this conversation and trying to keep back how I was feeling, because it wasn't about me, it was about my friend. And I sat there for close to a half hour just staring and crying and being so worried. Like, I'm in my 30s now. Am I gonna break? Am I still in danger of snapping? Of just like my mental state shattering? Do I need to be worried? Should I get professional help? I don't know. I still don't know. I still don't have the answers for these things. And today was kind of a rough day for me because I feel better. I'm not feeling all those things. I'm getting a little bit misty at the moment. I'm talking about it again. But today was a good day. I had a good day today. I'm in a good mood. I'm feeling saucy. but I'm still worried. The fear is still there. It doesn't go away. It's going to be a part of things I have to deal with for a really long time. But then today I also read something else. Another person that I'm friends with shared something, and there were little sparks of struggles I remembered myself going through in reading this other person's story. And I had these, I cried again. I did more crying. I do a lot of that. Because I looked at where this person is now, looking at what they had experienced as a youth, as a young adult, and then now where they are in their life. And this person is a huge inspiration to me. She is phenomenal. She's like a sparkling, brilliant little magical fairy of stardust. Okay, she's amazing. And I thought, if she in her life right now has been able to overcome those things and find herself and embrace herself and love herself and be even stronger for it, I want to stop worrying. I want to stop being afraid. I don't want to, every so often have to wonder, am I going to lose it? Am I going to go crazy? So for now, I'm going to keep sharing, oversharing a lot. And I'm going to keep supporting people and being there for people. And maybe I'll look into whether or not I have the option of seeking professional advice. I don't know. We'll find out. But this is just more of me rambling on about what goes on inside of my head. And probably nobody cares. Probably nobody will watch this, and that's okay. I don't mind. These are also as much for me as they are for anybody else. So, but if you did watch this, and you have any thoughts or advice or words of wisdom or kindness or something to share, comment, let me know. If you talk to me outside of the comment section, send me some love. Could use some love. And I'm in the process of trying to think about how I can help people. So I probably won't share that in here. I won't talk about that, at least not until there's like a concrete plan. But I don't actually suffer from legitimate mental health issues that I know of. And despite that, that's one of the things that scares me the most. That to me is a terrible thing to have to deal with. So I want to do what I can to help people who are suffering, because even just the fear of that is very difficult for me. And if I can so much as lighten the load off of somebody else's shoulders, I want to do that. So that's something I've got to keep my mind occupied, and hopefully it will also help me with my own healing and my own stuff. So that's about it. I'm gonna upload this and go make sure my child has not burned the house down. And I will see you guys in the future. All right? Mwah.